Hmm? All right, so now we're being recorded. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar and welcome. Uh, what we're going to discuss today is the topic of improving your spend control with budget and budget checking in ApprovalMax. This webinar is primarily designed for those of you who haven't yet thought about adding budgets to your day-to-day practice, to your day-to-day work. And our goal for today's webinar will be to answer two of the main questions. The first one would be, why do you need budgets in the first place? The second one would be, how do we create those budgets and how we can apply them to your ApprovalMax account if you already have one, or how would you start your trial and test it out within the system, how you can give permissions to your approvals and to your decision makers to make their approvals on the go. So this webinar will be for about 30 minutes long, so bear with me for that time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the Q&A. Someone joined. Oh, right, so everything's fine. So do not hesitate to ask your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom on the bottom of the screen. I'll make sure to answer all of them at the end of the session. If I won't have an answer for you right now, I'll later on come back to you with an email providing all of the answers you might need. This webinar, as you might notice already, is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording sometime soon, within the next 24 hours. So let me first introduce, just a second. All right, so now it should be fine. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Alex Kesselman. I'm a solution engineer here at ApprovalMax, and today I'll be your host. So let's get started. And we'll start with asking one simple question. So why do you need a budget in the first place? Well, to be frank, budgeting is the basis for all business success. It helps you with both planning and control of the finances of the business. So if you have a budget, you can easily estimate your company's revenue, you can plan expenditures, or you can restrict certain expenditures that is not in part of your plan. Budgeting can ensure that money is allocated only to those things that support your business goals and business objectives. And if you have well-communicated budget, everyone from your team, all of your decision makers will be able to understand the priorities of the business. So if you don't have a budget at the moment, you might find yourself running around in circles trying to understand what is your long-term goals. But how do we create our budgets? Well, I've prepared 4 simple steps for you to follow. And the first one will be to estimate your revenue. So that is pretty much all of the amount you expect to make from selling your goods or services. It is all the cash you bring indoor, regardless of what you've spent to get there. So this is sort of like a first line for us. It can be based on the last year averages or simply on the industry, on the last year numbers or simply on the industry averages. Once we have our revenue, we can think about the estimation of the fixed costs. So these are all of the things that do not change over the time, like your rent, your insurance, utilities, bank fees, legal services, accounting, and so on. Then, aside from the fixed cost, we need to calculate and we need to add our variable costs. So things like raw materials, inventory, production costs, packaging, or shipping. So things that are changing based on your production or sales operations. And this pretty much related to the cost of goods sold. So in other words, anything related to the production of your business or anything that you've actually used during this period of time. So once we have all of these numbers, we can put it all together, and with all of the gathered sources of income and all of the expenses, we can see the overall profitability of your business. Sorry, someone is just calling on my phone, so I'm getting a bit distracted here. All right, so that is how we put the budget in place. However, I want to give you several tips how to make this planning and creation of this budget a bit more easier and a bit more understandable. And first of all, the first tip would be to review your budgets on a monthly basis. So it's not a great idea to just create a budget at the beginning of the year and just follow that no matter what. There is always little things that going on here and there, so you'll need to make those little adjustments so you remain as accurate as possible. The second thing, overestimate your expenses. So there is no harm to overestimate your expenses, because by doing so, you'll be prepared for anticipated expenses, and it won't allow them to appear in your budget. So overestimating may also give you some money back into the budget that you can either place in your emergency fund, or you can simply pay it back for another month where expenses are higher than expected. The third one might be a very obvious tip. However, what we've noticed for the past 2 years, though it might be very, very obvious, but a lot of companies there never actually follow that. And that is creation of the emergency fund. 2 years ago, pandemic hit all of us, and a lot of companies went bankrupt within the first few months of service, within the first few months of pandemic, just simply because they had no emergency fund in place and their operations were not effective at all. So put aside 3 to 6 month emergency fund, so you'll always have some stability on your operations. And once we're done with that, break down your budget based on the department or maybe by the project, or if you're in construction industry, you can divide it into the projects. In that case, all of your departments and all of your project managers will have their own budget so they can keep track of those things. So that is some of those tips. But now let's learn how to actually create our budgets. And we'll start with zero. So though you can simply create budget aside and just upload that into your ApprovalMax account, but it's just much easier if you'll create that on a zero budget manager because it will automatically be synced back to your ApprovalMax account and you'll always have the full picture of what's going on in your general ledger and also in the ApprovalMax system. So for that, we'll be using Budget Manager tool, which will allow you to create, import, and edit the budgets. And there is a second tool, which is quite new for Zero. It's called Budget Variance Report. So you could compare your actual numbers against the budget. So let's see that in action. We will now create a simple budget for one of our departments, and we'll see how it's been integrated to your ApprovalMax account and what it will look like for your decision makers when they will be actually approving things like purchase orders or invoices. So let's start with a demo. I will stop sharing this screen and I'll start sharing this one where I'll have my browser. Just give me a moment. Share the screen. Okay. So you should be able to see my second screen right now. So first of all, we'll go into our Zero account, and from the accounting under the reports, we'll find the budget manager tool. So you can find that straight away from here. In my account, in my Monty Python organization, I don't have an overall budget for the full organization. However, I do have already a product department budget. So let's now create an additional budget for our marketing team. So I'll click on Add New Budget. I will give it a name, maybe marketing, for the department marketing, which is based on my tracking categories. And in your case, that might be projects, or that might be some properties, or whatever you can think of. Click on Save, and it will create sort of like a spreadsheet for us, where each row will represent different GL codes, and each column will represent different months. So let's create a very, very simple budget and just see how it will work on the ApprovalMax side. So let's say we want for the marketing department to provide their advertising and marketing budgets. Let's say that would be 30,000 pounds per month. And I will adjust this percentage for each month by 5%. Then I will also want to add, let's say, general expenses. That would be like 20,000 for this all months. And let's say we want to add an additional thing. Let it be computer equipment. Where is that? I can find computer equipment, so we'll just leave it this way. So just for you to understand the way it works, that we can provide per each of our account code their own respective numbers, click on Save, and we're pretty much done here in Zero. And now we can go into our ApprovalMax account and see the way it will integrate and the way it will look for our decision makers. So with that, we'll go to our account here in ApprovalMax. If you haven't yet started the trial, you will have an access to all of this feature once you'll start your free trial for 14 days. And if you are already using ApprovalMax, you can simply enable those features by upgrading to the advanced plan. It will enable this 14 days free trial for you as well. So here from our main menu, we'll scroll all the way down to the budget checking feature. Here there is two options. You can either create budgets by your own. You just need to use the layout of Zero Budget Manager and you will be able to upload your budgets manually. However, the preferred option would be to simply pull those budgets from Zero. So once I'll click on Pull from Zero, it will automatically sync all of those budgets into my account. So as you can see already, I have my overall budget, which is deactivated. I have my product budget, which is activated. And now it's syncing my newly created budget for marketing. Just give it a second to load. All right, so now it's being synced. And the next part for us would be to activate this budget and select which budget check period we want to use. So for that, we'll click on three dots here, activate the budget. Now it's active, and we can select what should be the budget checking period. So let's say we want to see the financial year to date. Click on save, and that's it. The whole thing is done. There is nothing else we need to do. If we'll change something in our budgets in Zero, they will be automatically applied back to ApprovalMax, and it will work in both directions. So if you've approved something and this bill or purchase order went into Zero, this amount will be deducted from the budget, and you will see that in your budget checking feature. So let's now try to raise the purchase order and see the way it will look like from our requester and our approver. So I'll click on create new, and I'll select purchase order to Monty Python. Let's, for example, purchase some laptops for our marketing team. So let's select contact. Well, let's, for example, go with Samsung, just in case. Delivery date, let's give it a name, webinar budget, whatever. And here we'll purchase certain laptops. So laptops for our lovely marketing team. Quantity, let's purchase 100 for the price of $3,999. That will be a very expensive laptops for our marketing team. Provide a GL code. Let's say that will be a general expenses for them and for the marketing team. If needed, we can, of course, make an attachment here. I'll just add an invoice. And what I'll do right now, I'll just simply submit it for approval. And what both our approvers and our requesters will see here, including all of the necessary details on what we are actually approving, like laptops for our lovely marketing team, all of the details in terms of the total amounts, attachment. So we can see it in full screen or in side-by-side view. But also, if we scroll all the way down here, we can find our budget checking feature. So what we can see here for the marketing department, and we will show you only the budget that can be applied for that particular GL code or for that particular department or your tracking category. So in my case, I'm purchasing for general expenses. So it's showing me the budget for these general expenses. And as you can see here, I have a remaining budget of 220 grand. And the amount of this purchase order is much, much higher. It's almost twice as higher. So the status would be over the budget. So my approver right now, they can use the commenting tool, or they can just simply reject this bill. Please, no, I won't approve it. It is against the budget. Now both requester and the team of approvers who will be approving that particular request, they will receive an email notification showing this comment that I've made. And original requester can click on edit of the purchase order. Let's say we want not 100, but let's purchase 10 laptops, only for the best of the best in the team. And resubmit that for approval. Changed an amount. Resubmit for approval. And if we'll scroll all the way down here, we can see that the status is fine. So your decision makers can make their decision based on the real life data without asking you as an accountant or without going into accounting software to check against the budgets, or they won't need to use the paper-based spreadsheets or whatever there is. Everything is included straight away from one screen. However, what if a person who is making this approval decision want to dig into the numbers and see what's actually been going on throughout different months? Well, for that, you can simply click on the budget itself, and you will see what is your budget for the full period of time. What is your remaining budget? Well, in my case, that's just a new budget, therefore I don't have any values here. However, if you already approved something or there are things that are on approval, you will be able to see them straight away as a full picture or in division by month. So I can see if I have overspent somewhere, if I've underspent somewhere, or if I'm allowed to reallocate budgets from the previous month to that particular month so I can make like a big purchase. Then once everything is ready, simply click on approve and this will disappear. So just as easy as that. So let me stop sharing this screen once again and just give me a moment. That's always a problem when you have several screens. Share screen, this one, this one. All right. So, so why would you want to use the budget checking feature in ApprovalMax? When it comes to approval process, it is usually very unclear for those decision makers of yours if they're actually allowed to make their decision. It is if it's aligned with the budget. So it's typically for those decision makers to make either blind decisions based on their intuition, or it will become a game of cat and mouse when they need to ask yourself or someone from your team who have access to the budget. So rather than doing that, with budget checking, your decision makers will be able to see all the data in real time, and all of these data will be automatically synced in between the systems. So they can not only see that in real time, but also retrospectively, month by month, or as a full picture, an overall picture. So how can you try this feature? Well, I've mentioned already, if you're not yet a customer, start a free trial and all of those features will be available for you straight away. If you are a customer, then in this case, just ask your account owner or administrator, so they will start this 14 days free trial and see it for yourself if that will give a value for your particular business. And we're coming to the end of today's webinar. I see that there was a few questions already, so let me stop sharing the screen and let me take a look on those questions. So let's start with the chat. Carol, we have budgets by department, which Xero cannot do. Can ApprovalMax deal with budgets by department? Could you please let me know why Xero cannot do? Because pretty much for your department, if that is a tracking category, you will see exactly the same picture as I have when I was creating my budgets. Or you mean the budgets just specifically for the department without division to the GL codes? Let me know in the chat section so I'll be able to answer. I'll be able to answer question in depth. Reynolds is asking, can you demonstrate also in QuickBooks? Unfortunately, this budget feature, it is not yet available for QuickBooks Online. This is something we're working on. So this is on our roadmap and it should be available hopefully sometime soon. And once it will be available, I believe we'll also have an additional webinar specifically on how to use that against the budgets in QuickBooks Online. So hope that answers your question. Keep in mind that it's going to be sometime soon. Thelma is asking, hi, up to what step approvers can check with budgets? Great question. Actually, throughout all period of approval process, so it doesn't matter if it's just the first approval step or it's the last approval step, everyone who is involved in the approval process, they will always have access to the budgets and they can always compare numbers one to another. I see. All right, so there is a Q&A section as well. Natasha is asking, how does the PO know what budget to be allocated to do we need to mark this on PO creation? Actually, no. So the whole, so this budgeting checking feature will purely look at the GL code that you've been using when the PO was raised and on the tracking category if you're using those. Therefore, a combination of these two things will apply a corresponding budget. If there is numerous line items and using different account codes, all of the applied budgets will be showing for your approvers, so they could compare actual numbers on what they need to approve. The next question, Claire is asking, do build and approve, my questions are going, also, my colleagues, please do not do that because it's been a bit scary. Some questions just left and I see that it was gone into the answered. I'll do that myself. So do build and approved purchase orders needs to be matched or marked as built in Xero to ensure that amounts aren't double counted in the budget remaining calculation. It's not necessary. So you can of course do that. However, all of the approved bills, even if they're not matched or even if they're not marked as built, will appear in your budget variance report. So it's not necessary. However, you can always do that, of course. Matching and marking things as billed, it is purely depends on the approval process, and that can be done internally within ApprovalMax system. Uh, mm, mm, mm. So Natasha is asking, is it only PO that gets tracked against budget, not the bill? Actually, no, both. It is for purchase orders and bills. I have just shown that with one example on the purchase order side. However, with the bills, it will look exactly the same. So no worries about it. Carrie is asking, does this work for QuickBooks too? Not at the moment, unfortunately. This is something that will be available sometime soon. So bear with us. It will be live, hopefully, hopefully soon. Claire is asking, does the remaining budget amount include any journal adjustments put through in zero? That's the very good question. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you at the moment for that particular question. I will need to ask my colleagues or check with the Zero team. Let me come back to you after the webinar with an answer for that question. All right, so in the chat section, there is more things. Carol, all right, yeah, thank you for providing some additional details. We use department tracking for transactions, but my understanding is that Zero is not so separate budgets for separate departments. There is only one overall budget on Zero, does not do tracking. Actually, it's just something that I've shown you on the screen. Let me just do that once again. So in your Zero Budget Manager, just simply click on the overall budget itself on the drop-down list and click on Add New Budget. And here you will be able to create a separate budget for that particular department. So it will show you the list of all of your tracking categories, and you will be able to create this new budget for that particular tracking category. I hope that answers the question. And of course, it might be confusing at the beginning because it's just showing you overall budget for everyone, but you have an option to create unlimited amount of those budgets per each of your department. Thom is asking, I guess I might be missed this info. Does budget checking functionality works with PO approvals? Yes, and that is something that I've shown on the example. So it works both for the PO approvals and for the bills approvals. Reynolds is asking, can app alert requesters on the limit of amount before even submission? Very good question. Not at the moment. We're thinking on adding that. However, there are a few technical difficulties with that. Hopefully sometime soon that will be possible. But even now, when you're just submitted that, you will always be able to see what's going on. So you can always trace back what's going on with your budgets. So though it might be like an additional step, and it will be much maybe better to have the information when you're just raising the request, but there are a few things that are blocking that. But hopefully sometime soon it will be resolved as well. That must have changed recently. Maybe I'm actually seeing that. Well, I've been using budget checking feature for, I'd say, and budget manager tool for, I'd say, maybe half a year already, and they had that. But I am sure that maybe before they didn't have that, and that might be the reason why you haven't seen it. Okay. How do we stop double counting? QuickBooks. I think I've answered all of the questions. It's does the remaining budget demand include in journal? It takes into account P1 bill. Okay, so how do we stop double accounting if takes into account PO and bill? Good question. So basically, these are two different request types, and it will be showing as two separate requests. So they do not mix one to another. It will be one budget report on the things that you're purchasing on the purchase order side, and another one for the bills for invoices that you approved. Thank you. I'd be interested to know how the budget remaining calculation is calculated. Well, that's simple. Once you have approved something, this request is get registered into your accounting software, and basically it's just what's the word for that when you're distracting? I forgot the English word for that. Sorry. When you just put a minus on what you have on the budget, against the something that you already approved, and that's just simple as that. Mm-mm-mm-mm. As a group, we have two zero records for parent and subsidiary. Will I need to split the budget? Good question. In zero, your organizations are considered a separate entity. Therefore, you will have a separate budget manager for one entity and another one for your subsidiary. Therefore, in that case, the best course of action would be yes to split the budgets for your main organization and for subsidiary. So in ApprovalMax later on, both these organizations will be shown as one list. Your approvers won't need to change organizations to see what's going on. All of the requests will be showing them in just one screen under requires my decision. So they will be able to see what is the budget for the main organization and what is the budget for subsidiaries. Oh, a lot of questions. Thank you very much. That's perfect. I remember one question that I forgot to answer that I have no answer at the moment. I remember that, so I'll come back to you with that with an answer later on, or some of my colleagues will come back with an answer later on. Any additional questions um, before we'll finish our webinar? Let me know. Do I still sharing the screen? No, I do not. Okay, seems like there is no more questions, and thank you very much for asking all of them. It will give us um, some understanding where, first of all, where to go from our end, and what is the main pain points for users, so we can add some feature requests for later on. Um, mm, 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 mm. Ah, Reynolds is asking, okay, thanks. Amending budget, can it be done directly at ApprovalMax or until from QuickBooks or Zero and then upload again in ApprovalMax to affect budget changes? Um, no, actually, amending budget is not possible. Well, if you manually created budgets like an Excel spreadsheet and just uploaded that in ApprovalMax, you can of course just manually change that and re-upload it. However, if you're using Zero Budget Manager, you will need to change things on Zero, and you won't be able to change budgets in ApprovalMax itself. And once you do that over there, these changes will be automatically pulled into your ApprovalMax account. So there is no need for you to refresh it or to sync it once again. So all of the values, and actually, let me put it aside. We can consider ApprovalMax as an add-on to our accounting software. It doesn't matter, Zero or QuickBooks Online. So we are just enhancing approval process for your decision makers. However, all of the values, tracking categories, GL code, items that you're purchasing, your budgets, all of that is done and taken pulled from your accounting software. Therefore, all the changes have to be done over there. So we track directly from Zero QuickBooks. Yes, that's correct. So if something is changing over there, it's automatically being pulled into your ApprovalMax account. We hope to add that for QuickBooks, hopefully very, very soon. Feel free, take a look on our newsletters. Once we'll have this new feature, we'll make sure to, first of all, send a newsletter to all of our customers. And probably we'll also have an additional session just like this one. So I will show you how it works with QuickBooks Online as well, just as we have with Zero right now. At least within 6 months, hopefully. All right. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. Again, you will receive the link to the recording within the next 24 hours. If you have any additional questions for that feature or any other technical aspects of using ApprovalMax, feel free to drop us a line. In the product, you will find the question mark on the top right corner, and our support team will be able to come back to you. Well, they will come back to you within the fastest way possible, like within several hours. So, and I hope to see you, our happiest customers, if you're not yet our customer. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the day, and bye-bye.